08:15, August the 6th, 1945. Sunrise may transpire not as you like it. Today had been unbuttoning itself badly. Last night was blown open by more bombing raids, looting all their dream-rich retreats once again, then holding family breakfast to ransom. Grandmother set off across the shared divide, promising succour to her newly ambulant grandson, who'd been whimpering after spewing up some milk. The old lady slipped in her house slippers, falling onto spectacles gripped in her outstretched hand. Now it was the turn of her own grown child to play nursemaid. The blazing flare and splash of radiant red shocked her only scion, but shouted out for urgent repair. Vermilion blood red, not rust red, yet forged from iron spawned by a supernova aeons ago and light years away. Recycling, redistributing, abiding iron, and perhaps a perpetuating iron of the soul. The torn tissue should regenerate and heal without scar. A wipe, a patch, a bandage saved that moment's wound, though crystal vision had been further clouded. Time was closing in after spending some on mother, and the other parent already flown from the domestic cloister for work. Their daughter was murmuring from her chair that she didn't have her lunch for school. Food to fire her engines, to keep her warm and vital, to make her grow and mature and reproduce herself. Fish from the nearby sea, netted and snatched from a food chain that links back to the energy of our sun. She had packed her schoolbooks in her backpack herself. Repositories of considered concepts and treasuries of triggering words to fire imagination and understanding of her universe. The bus stop would hold fast to the deadline of 0750. Now, with mother and the children both structured for the day, escape from the cocoon was possible. How had this transmutation from days of desire and aspiration to days of mundane repetition and laudable subsistence come about? The attrition of unrelenting care and responsibility, demand and provision, debts of sleep and spontaneity, and then the war is proposed as an answer. Two lovers now sighing more like exhausted hot ashes than a fiery furnace. The furnace that had fashioned the melding of building codes into the joy of creation and new births and universes. 0740 at the bus stop, and a welcome few minutes to tune down and think and worry about nothing in particular. A group of rather dishevelled, enervated soldiers trooped past. They made no attempt to quieten the redundant profanity that spattered from them, a sad, verbalised profanity that evinced a deeper, darker profanity of thoughts and deeds. An all-clear siren sounded as they passed by, and the unvoiced wave of solace along the bus queue was almost palpable. The 0750 bus, proclaiming its Shima Hospital sign, rumbled up at 0750. It was paramount to the national psyche that daily life and services must persevere efficiently, even in the changing face of fortunes of war and escalating destruction. Another extraordinary, ordinary day was underway. There were always spare seats these days, as so many fighting-fit young men had disappeared from that daily life. The middle-aged man in the opposite seat analysed and categorised with his stare, and exuded comfortable confidence with his bearing and his formal, neat suit. A well-tailored suit, distressed only slightly by the failure of proportion in its coverage of expansive belly. Recollections of the events at breakfast were interrupted by speculation over this fellow. Perhaps someone in a much more senior position at the hospital. Was any memory on file? Memory is labile and capricious, relying on a nexus of chemical copulations between brain cells that may weld or decouple. Memory itself may be evanescent and evaporate, but the subject does not then cease to exist. The body is a regenerating memory of its own prototype, with all of its component molecular and particulate ephemera, interchanging and mutable in kaleidoscopic protean style. It is recognizable over time by its own memory and by another body's memory, though most of its elements and compounds have passed through part exchange. Congruence, not sameness. Gases in the breaths from all the bus ticket holders had been mixing in each stranger's lungs and bloodstreams and tissues. They had all become part of each other on that journey. The bus pulled into the hospital grounds at 08:15. The constant, helpful, streaming shower of energy particles from our sun had taken 9 minutes each to reach and warm the bus and nurture its passengers. He thought and worried one more time about his mother's injured hand as the energy continued to light up all the subjects inside and outside the bus. His nurse's uniform gleamed white, whilst the power suit opposite glowered darkly. He was enabled to perceive the fingers of his wristwatch, reassured that he was on time for his 0900 shift. The eardrums of all the occupants began to vibrate infinitesimally from the distant drone of an overhead aircraft. He thought that was surprising, as the all clear had recently sounded. A second, discrete energy package of a less powerful source, yet with lethal force, had been travelling for 6 hours to a predestined point in time and space directly over his bus. This was a dark, sinister energy, the energy of oblivion, of brutal metamorphosis, energy that turned every smidgen of mass in his body into energy itself, leaving no residue, no vestige, no echo, no quintessence. Here blew the first enraged, convulsive paroxysm of fulminative termination. No sole survivors on that bus, no scintilla of soul, no iota of self, no memoranda to behold, no shards, no bones, no ash, sans everything but a Cheshire cat growl.